Welcome everyone. Good morning. I'm Kamalveer and I'm part of Social Work Careers team. Thank you for joining us today. Before introducing this session, I would like to acknowledge the country we are learning through and on. Western Sydney University would like to acknowledge the Daruk people who are traditional custodians of the land that Western Sydney University seeks to thrive along with all others today. We acknowledge and pay respect to elders past and present who have given us time, knowledge, and guidance. We appreciate the rich contribution and resilience that First Nation peoples offer to the Western Sydney University. Over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Kamal. My name's Justine O'Sullivan, course advisor for undergraduate social work program at Liverpool, here at WSU. I myself am on the lands of the Bidjigal and Caprigal peoples, Eora Nation, on the easternmost shores of Sydney as it laps against the Pacific Ocean. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands. Aboriginal land always is and always will be. The learning, connecting that we're doing, that we've done all week, has just been amazing. And I really, I'm so excited that so many of you have been able to sample several of these sessions. But as we know that because NAIDOC week, that's what we're in the thick of is at the moment, it's about foregrounding the learning that we've gained from Aboriginal peoples and noticing the strengthening of our people all together as a reconciled nation can only come from valuing every single member, every single contribution. I'd also like to thank everybody who's made these sessions possible, and particularly the Social Work Careers student team, Imtiaz, Kamal and Rubina from other days, but also the Western Careers Hub staff have just been amazing. And each of you, every single question that you offer and bring to us helps us expand our thinking. So, and that's been proven over and over again this week already. So we really value every single question that you post. I just also want to flag that there's several other sessions following today. And so we're going to try really hard to finish at about 5 to 11 so that people who want to move on to the next session can get organised for commencing at 11 o'clock for the next session. Kamal, did you want to do the housekeeping?
Yeah, sure, Justin. So I need to let you know that this session will be recorded and we are hoping to make this available via course sites. During this session, we ask you to put your video on if that's possible, but if not possible and for any reason, we suggest you to add a professional photo of yourself to your profile. In that way, you will be well represented in the sessions. We are hearing from the presenter who you may be interviewed by one day soon. We also ask people to mute your microphones while presentations are happening. Each session you attend, we ask you to please put your name and student number. This will enable us to provide a certificate of attendance. This will also enable you to be in running for the Lucky Zoom raffle prize of $40 cash voucher for people who attended at least one of this week's session. The Lucky Zoom winners will be drawn at the final session of the week, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Friday. If you put your name in the chat in any session from the Social Work Careers event, you will be included in the draw, and will send an email to your student email ID to advise you. Remember, if you have any question at any time, could you please put it in chat box and we will ask the presenter during the question answer round. Thank you.
Thanks, Kamal. So today we'd like to introduce you the wonderful staff of Life Without Barriers. The team that's coming forward is Kestra Caller, Erin Bai and Nicole Robinson, and we thank you for your time. And over to you, Kestra.
Thank you, Justine, and thank you to the careers team at Western Sydney University for hosting all of these events and for inviting us along to attend. And of course to the students for giving up some time on your Friday morning to listen and join us today. So we'll do a little bit of an around the ground. So Justine mentioned already who we have here, but we'll do a bit of a quick around the grounds anyway. So I'm Kestra Caller. I'm one of our recruitment advisors, and I look after our intensive therapeutic care programs in New South Wales.
My name's Erin Bai. I'm also a recruitment advisor, and I look after the recruitment for our family-based care program across New South Wales.
Nicole Robinson, as you can see, case manager in family-based care, and I graduated my master's in social work last year with Western Sydney.
Yeah.
So I'm here to tell you all about what happens when you leave school.
Perfect. So we'd also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're all meeting from today. And I'd like to pay my respect to their elders past, present, as well as to emerging leaders, and acknowledge that this session is being held from various traditional lands, and I extend my appreciation to their cultural heritage, beliefs, and spiritual connections with this land. So I'm hoping that some people on the line have heard about Life Without Barriers. If not, that's okay. We're here to tell you a little bit more about us. So Life Without Barriers is one of the largest non-for-profit social purpose organisations in Australia. And we work in over 440 communities and employ approximately 7,500 people nationally to provide support to vulnerable people. Life Without Barriers believes that a society where everyone can participate is a stronger, more resilient society, and that drives our purpose, which is to partner with people to change lives for the better. As I said, Life Without Barriers is a non-for-profit organisation, and we provide services to vulnerable populations in the Australian community. So this includes child, youth and family space that we'll be discussing further today, but we also provide supports to other vulnerable groups, including people with disability, aged care clients and refugees and asylum seekers, to name a few. We're a values-based organisation, and so those values that you can see on your screen now are embedded in our day-to-day work, regardless of the role that we're in. And these values are what we look for in our candidates and potential employees. So if you are considering a role at Life Without Barriers, or you do consider a role at Life Without Barriers, these values, along with other qualifications and experience, are really important, and we'd want to be able to see that you can reflect these as a candidate and continue to do so if you were to gain employment with Life Without Barriers. So a good thing to be aware of if you do end up having an interview with Life Without Barriers, values will be spoken about. So we'll be discussing our child, youth and family program today, and that's split into two separate program branches, I suppose, which is family-based care that Erin will be speaking to you about shortly, and intensive therapeutic care, which is the portfolio that I recruit for. So intensive therapeutic care provides therapeutic support to children and young people between the ages of 12 to 18 who have experienced significant trauma. So the intensive therapeutic care program involves supporting children and young people with high and complex needs who are either unable to be supported in foster care or require specialised intensive support. So intensive therapeutic care is a residential program. So the child or young person are living in what has previously been referred to, or some people may have heard referred to as out-of-home care, and Life Without Barriers provide them with 24/7 support. So I think an important thing to flag, if this was an area that you'd be looking to work in, is that the children and young people in this program have unfortunately experienced trauma, abuse and neglect, and so may present with trauma and pain-based behaviours. And so the candidates that we'd be looking to employ in such a program would have a good knowledge of trauma and the impacts of that on children and young people, and be confident in being able to provide therapeutic trauma-informed care and support. So within our intensive therapeutic care program, we do also have 2 additional programs that sort of branch off from there. So we have the intensive therapeutic care significant disability program. And again, that's a program providing support to children and young people between the ages of 12 to 18 who have experienced significant trauma and neglect. And they also identify as having a significant disability. So that can either be an intellectual or physical disability. This support again is in a 24/7 residential setting. The second program from that is our interim care model. And our interim care model is quite a new program to Life Without Barriers. We've actually just started it up within the last 6 or so months. Again, 24/7 care, but the children and young people in this program typically fall between 9 to 14 years old. And they have they're either new to care and haven't been able to find a suitable foster care placement, or the foster care placement has ended or broken down. So it's designed to be a 3 to 6 month placement for children and young people, while we, in the interim, support them to find their new placement. So the typical roles that we would have available within intensive therapeutic care would be our youth worker or youth worker significant disability roles. Now internally, these roles are referred to as intensive therapeutic care workers, but we advertise them as youth worker or residential youth worker, just as we find it's a bit more of a known name and more relatable, as intensive therapeutic care is a somewhat new title. So these roles would need candidates to have a first aid certificate and an unrestricted New South Wales driver's licence. And the qualification requirement for these roles would be, as it says, a relevant diploma or bachelor, or studying towards one of these. So where candidates are studying towards, ideally they'd have some relevant or paid work experience through uni or TAFE placements, for example. However, if candidates can demonstrate a really strong understanding of trauma and the impacts of that on children and young people, and how to effectively deliver care and support to these children and young people, as well as that alignment to the LWB values, these candidates would be someone we'd want to consider. So interim care residential worker is the other role. Again, first aid, unrestricted New South Wales driver's licence. And you would need either experience in a residential service or study within a relevant field, but a qualification isn't a requirement. So these roles, in particular for sort of the earlier undergrads on the line, can be a really good foot in the door. Again, we'd want candidates to demonstrate an understanding of trauma and how to deliver trauma-informed care and support, and align with the LWB values. So case managers, intensive therapeutic care, and Nicole will speak to you a little bit more about the role of a case manager when it gets to her. But again, they'd need an unrestricted driver's licence, and most of these roles do come with a car for work and personal use. You'd need to hold a bachelor or hold a diploma working towards a bachelor, and have a strong understanding of casework practice for children and young people. So I'd say if case management is a goal and sort of a career that you're looking to move into, I'd recommend you start where you can as an undergrad and get some experience either through work or uni placements. So as I said, interim care is a good place to start so that you can have that hands-on and frontline type of experience supporting children and young people, so that you can bring a greater understanding into your potential application for a case manager position. And again, Nicole will talk a little bit more later about what her background was and how she got into case management as well. Okay.
Thanks, Kestra. I'll now move on to talking about our family-based care program within Child, Youth and Family. So this program is a program around foster care, which provides care to children and young people between the ages of 0 to 18. So our team at our family-based care team, assists children in finding a suitable foster care placement, and then supports the child as well as the carer during that placement to ensure that the child and the carer and their family are involved in the case plan and are supported in every way they may need to be, from health to schooling to mental health or in any supports they may need. Family-based care provides a number of therapeutic supports, case management and youth work to children and young people in the program. So some of the roles within the program I'll go into in a moment, but it's really about providing that wraparound service to the children and young people. So some of the family-based care roles that we have available, so the first one is case management. So similar to the role that Kestra's been talking about for her program, it is slightly different in that you're providing that support to also the carers, the children and their family. And in that role, we look for a relevant bachelor's degree. So it would be such as Bachelor of Social Work or Bachelor of Psychology, an unrestricted driver's license, and some understanding of casework practices. So again, that youth work or residential experience would be a great starting point for someone moving into a role like this. But I suppose within an interview at Life Without Barriers, we're really looking for that, interest in our values, as well as some knowledge of traumas and the histories that the children may have received, and I suppose how those behaviours might translate in a child or young person. The next role we've got mentioned there is family contact worker. So this role, we typically have a contact centre in the Central Coast and Newcastle. So at the moment, we don't have any vacancies in this area in Sydney. However, what this role does is would provide some mentoring and travel to children and young people, but also assist children in meeting with their biological family. So they might be meeting with their birth parents or their auntie, uncle, and the family contact worker sits within that contact and observes and provides any assistance where required. So in that role, we're looking for someone with unrestricted driver's license as well as a vehicle, because they do need to provide that transport to the young person to and from the visit or to and from school. Either a tertiary qualification or some experience. So it is quite a good role as an entry-level role if you're wanting to gain experience in the industry, as well as a first aid certificate. And the next role is a youth worker. So this role, it works within that family-based care program, and where in a case plan a child might need some additional supports, then this role would assist. So it might be, again, transport, mentoring, or for example, if a child is aging out of care, then they may need assistance in writing a resume or helping them find a job or something like that. So it can be a range of services, and this is typically a casual role. So it is great for when you're studying as well. So this role requires a car again and an unrestricted driver's license to be able to provide that transport, a Cert 3 or similar equivalent qualification. So if you're studying your bachelor, that would be suffice, and also a first aid certificate. So it would be a great way again to learn more about the program and working with children, young people, and getting that exposure to children who have had that trauma, abuse or neglect background. Thanks, Kestra. So to give you a little bit more information on Life Without Barriers. So we're a large national organisation that is constantly growing. We're lucky to have grown quite significant in even just the last year, but over the last 5 years, we've significantly grown. So we have national opportunities and support functions that go with that. So, for example, we have professional learning and development, HR, law, legal, finance functions that help our client-facing teams do their work to the best of their ability. We also provide some training, which is through our learning and development team, through our child, youth and family programs, either online or face-to-face. And both of those are available for all staff. So within child, youth and family, we work to 2 models that are produced by the Cornell University. So all staff whom join the program will receive face-to-face training in both models. So the first is TCI, which is known as Therapeutic Crisis Intervention, which assists people in working with children who might become or come into crisis, and works to assist in de-escalating that behaviour or situation, and supporting the child from that, and provide any therapeutic support to the child that they may need. The second one is CARE, and this is called Children and Residential Experiences. And this is a program that was produced with intent to be used for residential services, but we also use it across our whole child, youth and family program. So also in with our carers, foster carers, staff in family-based care, and also in ITC. So that program really explains the therapeutic supports that we can provide to children and how we can support them to really achieve their goals and work towards those goals that they may be looking to achieve after or during their residential living. So some benefits with working with Life Without Barriers. So we provide salary sacrificing because we are a not-for-profit, and that's through Maxia. So that does increase take-home salary, as it can reduce your taxable income through many different ways that Maxia can explain in more detail if you're successful in a role. For full-time roles, we offer monthly rostered days off, which is a great benefit for extra few leave days a year. Most of us love that. And it's also an important role supporting vulnerable children and young people in our community and providing that support to them day to day. And Nicole, I'll hand over to you to give us some more information to the students. You're on mute, Nicole, sorry.
I had to do that because my cat is on my desk and yes, he's making a mess, so apologies for that. As I said before, I completed my master's in social work last year. To give you a background of how I've got to where I am currently, many years ago, I completed my Bachelor of Arts in youth work and worked in juvenile justice for about 10 years or so. Had a family and continued to work with young people in different environments. One of those was court-based. One of those was in actually working inside juvenile justice facilities as a person that supposedly locked them up every night. Probation, parole. I worked with youth drug court. And then I had a complete change of careers and became a paramedic for New South Wales Ambulance, which I was on the road, as we call it, in the uniform for about 12 years. And decided, well, it was decided for me, I had an injury and thought, now what am I going to do with my life? So I went off to uni. At the ripe old age of 48, I went back to uni and did my master's degree and finished last year. Hooray for me. Let me tell you, computers are a dream compared to a typewriter, for those of you that are a little bit older. Anyway, I always wondered, so in all of my roles, no matter whether it was medical-based or youth-based, I was always working with people that were vulnerable. Always working with people that for some reason weren't able to manage in society, as what we see as normal. There was challenges that they had, whether that they'd be turned to crime or addiction. There was all these different parts of them that were presenting, and it was in all walks of life, in every, whether didn't matter which state I worked in or which parts of the state, in rural areas, the same issues seemed to come up. So I wanted to know more about why people got to where they were, basically. Why were these people that were addicted to alcohol and drugs and couldn't get out of that cycle? Why was the welfare cycle continually going around in juvenile justice? Why were, so many different families of crime, generational families of crime? Why does that happen? And I wanted to see if I could learn their experience, understand what their lived experience was. So I had never heard of Life Without Barriers. I'd obviously heard of child protection. Child protection scared the heck out of me. I didn't think I could handle that. It was something to me that seemed to be quite a load, especially an emotional load. So I decided to give Life Without Barriers a go, because they seemed to offer the ability for me to learn about trauma-informed care and pain, like was mentioned before, pain-based care, all of those things that I really didn't know how that worked. So since I've started with Life Without Barriers, which was only 2.5 months ago, I have learnt an amazing amount of information about why people present the way that they do, especially if you're looking at going into like residential care as a worker or something similar to that to get some kind of experience. They're challenging. These kids will push you. These kids are always looking out to make sure that they're safe. They are kids that have been through experiences we'll never understand, unless we might have had similar experiences, but we'll never understand their experiences, no matter how old they are or how young they are. They've faced some pretty incredible things already, and they're trying to manage the best way that they can, and that's in their behaviours that they present. So as a case manager in Life Without Barriers, you've got all your little chickens from various ages, with various challenges, that are going through their stuff every day, just trying to get through the day with school or with their carers or with their family or their siblings. And there's the normal family stuff, but then they've got their trauma on top of that. And then as a case manager, you've also got to remember that the carers are going through that trauma with them, in terms of they're experiencing their behaviours every day. Carers have to take on the role of dealing with that behaviour, or even things like, bedwetting, not wanting to eat, eating only specific foods, not wanting to go to school, or all different behaviours that these little ones and older ones display. These are all challenges that the carers have to go through on a daily basis. So as a case manager, you have to be prepared to support them. And then in amongst all of that, you've got the children's family. Now, the children having a link to their family, and people kind of go, oh, but they're in child protection or they've been removed from their family for a reason. That's true, but that doesn't mean that these kids don't want to have a relationship with their mum, dad, grandma, auntie, whoever it may be. And that's something that is difficult, because obviously there's court orders, but at Life Without Barriers, we work really hard to try and keep the kids linked with their kinship. We do the best that we can with that. That can sometimes be difficult, because obviously the first role that we have is keeping our kids safe, but there's always that innate feeling of where did I come from, who do I belong to, who else is there. I don't necessarily remember things, so I want to talk to my mum or my dad and ask them questions, or my grandma and all that. So we try really hard to make sure that the kids understand what their biological family, who they are, and if they want to have a relationship of some sort, try and work the best way we can in developing that. So that also becomes, I guess, leads on to a challenge of the role. So as a case manager, you've got quite a lot to think of every time you have one case. On average, we have 12 cases in our caseload. So that's 12 people, 12 lots of carers, and 12 lots of families. So it's a heavy load. It's a huge responsibility. The biggest challenge is time. Like I was saying before we came on today, I finished at 7 o'clock last night, and I was up at 6:30 this morning driving some other little one across town so that she could go to the school that she's connected to, even though she's in a foster care placement on the other side of the city. Dropped her off at school and got here just in time for this. So that's the life of a case manager. And in between, I'm supposed to have put up on all my notes and do everything else that's supposed to be done during the day. Case management work is not something for someone that wants to just focus on counselling and being with the young people or the little ones. Case management is a lot more than that. There's a lot of paperwork responsibility. There's a lot of departmental responsibility. We've just gone through an audit, so you have to make sure that everything is up to date. I had an idea of what case management was. My second placement was at Royal Rehab, and which is an amazing facility, and I was very lucky to work in the brain injury unit, where the role is social work and case management. So I was aware of the fact that case management brought a lot of documentation, a lot of advocacy role, pushing for the person that needed all these different things, and that along with that came a lot of applications like NDIS and guardianship and other things like that. So I was aware of that. What I wish someone had told me about was that trying to fit all that in with actually doing your job is incredibly challenging. I like to think of myself as a fairly organized person, but I'm not organized enough. You have to be a case manager and truly find the time to spend like really quality time with all of the players in each family, I guess, but specifically with our young people and our little ones, unless of course they're real little toddlers and all those sorts of things. It's hard. It's really hard. You have to be very resilient in that you can't perform miracles. You can't make big changes in short amounts of time. You have to just accept the little wins, celebrate the little wins. You have to lean on others within your organisation. I came into this role not knowing what the role was, and in the middle of COVID, and everyone from Life Without Barriers is working from home. So I had to kind of teach myself some of the things. I had to read a lot. Obviously, the girl spoke about earlier, I'm going through the care training, which again is online rather than face-to-face, which makes it a little bit different again. So you have to be prepared to be able to juggle, balance, change, be very flexible, but at the same time remember that you are only one person and you can only do so much. So you've got to take care of yourself. I guess if I was going to pass anything off to anybody out there in social work land or similar, self-care is incredibly important. Go to your supervision, I know this is one of those words, reflection, that we used a lot at uni, but yeah, reflect, write it down, do whatever it is that you do to, I guess, purge, get rid of some of the thoughts and things that are going through your mind, because it really is truly, if you aren't well, you're not going to be able to look after everybody else. We all tend to be those types of people when we do these jobs. That's why we want to be there, is we care about others. So the thing is to make sure that you are looking after yourself so you can give as much as you need to everybody else that's out there. but rely and lean on everyone else. Everybody in Life Without Barriers is like, especially family-based care in Norwest. We call ourselves a family, and as much as our family has been disjointed in all our different homes, we're starting to finally go back to the office, and we're loving it. We're actually getting to see people face to face. We're able to just kind of like lean on someone and take that breath and go, oh my goodness, this is so hard, and someone else say, yeah, I know, you know. It's things like that that are really important. And Life Without Barriers encourages things like that. They're awesome with supervision. It's booked in monthly. It's confidential. You just sit with your manager and you purge and say whatever it is that you need to say about whatever it is that you need to say. Everyone is always available, even in this time when we're not all together every day. It's a quick phone call or an email and someone will ring you, and you know, we get little messages from each other, you know, checking in on our day and stuff. In terms of the most rewarding or the success story, I guess I can't say I have a success story, so to speak, because I've only been doing it for a short time. And in this role in foster care, their stories are really long. They go for many years. So a success story in terms of the big picture of what Life Without Barriers hopes to achieve is that we get the kids into a permanent foster care facility, a foster care situation. Everybody works well together. The family is happy, and everyone progresses along. We support everybody with whatever's going on at the time. And at the age of 18, even though they age out, you know, they've still got this really strong connection with their foster family, and they've got a really great connection with their normal family, with their biological family. And, you know, they have adjusted quite well to life. We've helped them work through their trauma and their pain-based behaviors. And, you know, they get there and everything's rosy, I guess. That's the big success story that we all want to achieve with each one of them. Unfortunately, as we know, that's not always the case. So take the little successes. For me at the moment with one of my young people, it's just him turning up to go to appointments. That's as simple as a success story as I can get at the moment. From him, to get him to engage in anything is incredibly difficult. So the fact that he is still ready on time when I go to pick him up to take him to his appointment is a win for me, because without that support that I'm getting for him, he'd be in a very different place. So that's probably my success story at the moment. The most rewarding is when you have those chats with any of the kids or the carers, or you sit back at a home visit where everybody's doing their family thing, and the person that's supposed to be in foster care is just one of the group. It's just one of the family members sitting at the table or doing the chores or running around crazy doing what kids do or going to swimming lessons and all that. They're just a member of the family like everybody else, and no one other than you and the carer know that they're in foster care. That is one of the most rewarding things to see, because that's what we're trying to achieve, is that providing these kids with the opportunity just to be kids and to be part of a family that loves them and provides safety and security. So I guess, yeah, that's probably the most rewarding part. Sorry if I rambled. I do talk a lot.
Thanks, Nicole. That was great. Okay, so now we'll move on to our recruitment process and where to apply. The first part being our process. So once we've selected candidates for interview, we do conduct one-way video interviews. So this provides an opportunity for about 5 or so questions, and that's emailed to you with a link, and you can provide that one-way interview to us to give us a little bit more information on your interest in Life Without Barriers and the role, and some of your experiences that you may have had to date. And then from that process, we select candidates for an individual interview, which is a face-to-face interview, and that's conducted. Most recently, it has been conducted virtually due to COVID, However, you know, as time moves on, we will be doing them again face-to-face in offices or the like. So that's something where the candidate has an opportunity to meet with the hiring manager and another person from the team, or Kester or I, and have an opportunity to chat further about the role and your experience, and also any questions that you might have for us as well. Following that, if successful, we complete a national police check, which we complete through Life Without Barriers. We have a team that does that. So we have an online form for candidates to complete, as well as references. So for references, we look for 2 management referees who have managed the candidate for a period of 6 months or more in the last 5 years. And we use an online system for that, where candidates can provide their email address or phone number, so that we can contact the referee quite quickly and efficiently. And we also look for a right to work in Australia, either through passport, citizenship, or visa, depending on if that's a possibility within the role. So some roles will also require working with children check. All roles in child, youth and family will require that. So there is volunteer and employee working with children check. So we do need the employee working with children check. A current driver's license. Some of the roles, as I mentioned earlier, require you to have your own car. For a role like a case manager, we do provide a car, so that's not essential for that role. A current first aid certificate, and then the qualifications for that particular role. Applying for Life Without Barriers roles. We have our careers page mentioned there, where all of our roles are advertised. So you can apply directly through that careers page. It'll take you through to a platform where you can upload your CV and answer a few questions, which is relevant to your interest in Life Without Barriers in your application. And so all applications should be made through the website, or where you see the role on something like Seek or Ethical Jobs or the like. But if you have any access needs or require any adjustments or have any questions for us, you can email recruitment@lifewithoutbarriers.org.au, and that's managed, inbox is managed by all our recruitment team at Life Without Barriers, so we'd be able to respond to you from there. And if you are interested in working at Life Without Barriers, there are currently opportunities advertised of your interest. We recommend you follow us on either Facebook or LinkedIn to receive information about jobs in the future, if there isn't anything of interest at the moment, or you're not looking at this stage. So that concludes the presentation of our information about Life Without Barriers. I hope you found that insightful, but we'd now like to open up for any questions, if you have questions from anyone on the call.
Great. So does anybody have a question, particularly from Kestra of the team? I've got, you've answered, so you've been so efficient at answering with some of the most common questions, Kestra, that, you know, the issue about right to work in Australia has been one. The driver's license issue has been, you've answered that really well. So there's basically somebody would be paid if they were required to have comprehensive insurance and a vehicle and the safety facilities for carrying young people and children. Would that be recompensed in any way in their pay? Like, I suppose you'd be paid for kilometres that you drove. Would there be any other recompense that you know of?
So definitely the kilometres would be reimbursed, sort of, and it's usually between, if you're travelling between 2 clients. So for almost the first trip from home to the first place of work wouldn't be reimbursed, but in between would.
Mm-hmm.
But to my knowledge, we don't reimburse for the comprehensive insurance,
No,
or the safety features.
So one question we've got here is, do you have jobs where you wouldn't need to do sleepover shifts, but you'd still be working in residential care or youth work with a youth work focus?
So the most common role would be the youth work and family contact work roles in family-based care. So those youth work roles are generally during daylight hours. There might be times where you'd be, working in the afternoon where you might be giving a child a lift home from school or something like that, or mentoring them then in the afternoon, but it wouldn't be a sleepover. However, with the roles in ITC that Kestra spoke about, if sleepovers isn't something you can do, we can accommodate that within a roster. But it depends if there's sort of, the shifts that we have available at that time don't include sleepovers.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I know there were a complex array of different jobs that might require or don't require driving. So is there one particular one that doesn't require a car at all? Is there a job, one of your classifications? Sorry, I can't see the PowerPoint, so I can't refer back to it, but is there anything that has where you don't have to have a capacity to drive?
Unfortunately, not. So for our residential youth work roles, you wouldn't need your own car. There would be a car, like a pool car or a company car that is at the home for everyone's use. But all of our roles, because we're supporting people and, they need to get to school and appointments and things like that, all of the roles would require driving in some aspects.
No, that's fine. And one question, the youth worker roles, I think you suggested, or Erin might have suggested, that a good starting point would be one of the residential youth worker roles, just to get, so people could do it when they didn't have a bachelor's finalised or a completed qualification. But I suppose the big question is, Nicole has such a vast array of pre-experience, even before she did the master's qualifying. What a spectacular array of experience. Some people are coming into the course and only have their placement experience, maybe, if at all. Would that be still possible for them to sort of put their hand up? I suppose it's if they align with the values of Life Without Barriers, but is there any other key component you think that people could emphasise if they had minimal experience but a passion?
So I think interim care in particular would be a good role to look out for candidates with sort of that entry level experience almost who are studying.
Yeah.
Again, as you said, Justine, we'd be looking at values. We want people who are passionate about the role. While that word gets thrown around quite a bit, it is what we want. We've had people apply that have had experience with children and young people, but in sort of a different area. So maybe they've done like before and after school care, for example. But they've been able to identify some transferable skills that they could bring over to the interim care role.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is there and right up front when you're talking about the critical nature of having trauma-informed capacity to demonstrate a trauma-informed understanding of maybe the pain that young people might have experienced, and the behaviours that might result, but the ways of intervening. It's great to see the training that would be available. That's fantastic. Is there any expectation, just say if somebody hasn't had that hasn't had that experience, or would there be a way? How would they demonstrate that if they haven't already sort of done some training in trauma-informed care?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah,
Thanks.
of course.
Your family.
Yeah.
If you've got children, you've been there. In terms of challenging behaviours, pushing boundaries, limitations, manipulation, all those things that kids put you through, no matter who they are, just because they're growing up and through their different developmental stages, that really helps you understand that is a lived example and how you've dealt with it. And also, if you don't have kids, your family members, the relationships that you've had with your family members or even colleagues, and, you know, presenting difficult behaviours and how you've managed to work around those. Even though they may not be coming, you know, these people might not be coming from trauma, the behaviours are still the things that we deal with, and behaviours tend to come from pain-based. You know, most of the time something else is going on for somebody, and that's why they're reacting in that way. And it's about being passionate, interested in finding out why they're. It's not just about what they're doing; it's about asking them why they're doing it. Is a big part of it. So if you can reflect on different parts of your own personal life or your family life, even people at uni, different things like that, ask them, you know, ask those sorts of questions, get the information, and that gives you an understanding of being able to answer the questions when you come to the interview. I don't have out-of-home care and case management experience in foster care. I don't have it. So I'm learning that part of it, even though I've got a vast amount of experience in life and in professionally, I still don't understand it. So that's why you just reflect on the things that you've done, and then you try and you start to see them in a different light and different way, rather than, oh, that person's just a pain in the butt because they don't go to school or they disrupt school all the time. Well, why are they doing that? Ask the question of yourself, why? And that's what Life Without Barriers focuses on, is the why. And okay, well, the why is this. How do we work with you or help you deal with the why so that's no longer a problem? So if you can understand that, and that's where your passion's coming from, you'll be able to talk yourself through that in the interview. And that's the type of people that they're looking for, because they want Life Without Barriers cares about those, all of the kids that come into our system, regardless of how they get here. And we know that there's a reason for it, but we want to know why you're doing that. What are you feeling? And let's work with those feelings, not just because you're naughty and so you lose, you know, the TV for a week. That's not what we're about. We're about what's going on behind that. So yeah, we all have that life experience if we sit down and look at it somehow, especially if we've got kids.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Nicole, because you did use the phrase testing out the safety or double checking the safety that, you know,
Yep.
so that's trying, you know, that's obviously you working out what the why
yeah
behaving that way.
Yeah.
And students, you can, even though you may not have like a module called trauma-informed practice, what Nicole's just been talking about, it's that self-reflection, noticing your world and maybe what you can name in your world that you can bring forward. And if you're at all attracted to this kind of organization, that's probably because you're naturally reflecting this is important work and thinking about why that is. Why is it that you're particularly wanting to work in this area? And then tune in, like Nicole suggested, to your own family dynamics or what's going on that you know something about. You're tuned into Christmas celebrations or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a lot of dysfunction in the world, regardless of how we got there. It doesn't have to be to the extreme, unfortunately, of what our kids have experienced, but we all react from an emotional base, and we all understand that. Most of us understand that's why we want to be social workers, you know, or psychologists and things like that. So we're coming from that with that question. And so reflection, as much as I got sick of hearing that at uni, reflection is really something that is incredibly helpful, especially when you're starting out, because it is hard when you don't have the experience. Even like I've got lots of experience, but I haven't never been a social worker before. So, you know, I'm with everybody else trying to sell what I've got as experience in life and professionally, in trying to turn that into what a social worker would do. And I honestly believe that because I could think about how to do that, and I've got the gift of the gab, I was able to explain that in my interview, so that even though I didn't have the direct experience of what the foster care process looks like, I was lucky enough to be given a go, because they could see that I cared and that I had abilities that would help me learn the system. And yeah, so yeah, have some faith in yourself. You can do it. It's scary, but you can do it. Trust, it is very scary.
That's a fantastic place to finish. And I just want to really sincerely thank Kestra, Erin, Nicole for bringing that wealth, that really concentrated dose of what life without barriers is about. And I think, would it be okay? Would you be able, Kestra, to share that PowerPoint with me, and
Yeah.
I can post it for the students who've attended in case that there's some sort of reflection they want to do on it.
Sure.
And sincerest thanks from everybody for your participation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Justine.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. It's fantastic.